My name's Steve Jones, and towards the end of 2020, I was diagnosed with a chondrosarcoma in my right lower tibia. I first noticed something was probably out of the ordinary was the beginning. So I was diagnosed in December. About March that year, I thought I'd impacted my leg in work, my lower leg in work. The only real symptom I had at that stage was if I ran my hand over my shin bone, I could feel there was a slight bit of disparity. So it was almost like raised, but it wasn't under the skin. So believe it or not, I thought I'd just banged my leg and it was going to, something that would just settle down with time. So being a typical bloke, I just sucked it up and got on with it. So given the time when I first noticed the symptoms, we were in a period of lockdown. So I just, as I say, typical male attitude of just suck it up and grin and bear it. There's no point in going to the doctors with it. It didn't settle down, and it was only because my wife, again, when you know something's there, you subconsciously, now I wear shorts quite a bit in the house and kicking around, so she catch me subconsciously just rubbing my leg, and one night she came to her head and she said, "Is that bothering you?" And I said, "Well, it's not really bothering me." But she basically said, "For me, please just approach the doctors about it." So I basically, to appease my wife, I did, and it was obviously, again, with COVID regulation, I did an e-consultation, and then I forget being in work and rolling my combat trouser up and taking literally a phone shot of my image of my leg to accompany the e-consultation. So I submitted that, and unbeknown to me at the time, it was probably not long after Bone Cancer Research Trust had just done an awareness campaign within the NHS, with the primary care within the NHS. Again, because I hadn't been physically examined by a medical practitioner, they sent me straight to the local acute hospital, to the radiology department, just for some imaging. When I got there, again, stars aligned in my favour, I believe. It just happened to be the consultant radiologist who was doing a bit of a back to the floor day, and they actually they'd arranged for me to go for an ultrasound. Again, subsequently I know it's because they obviously thought that the bump I was talking about was underneath the skin. Straight away she recognised that it wasn't, and I was directed to have an X-ray while I was in the department. After the X-ray, again, the consultant radiologist must have had a really good poker face, because subsequently I would have known, it would have been quite obvious that there was the sarcoma, the chondrosarcoma, and that was evident when I've been shown the X-rays. She very quickly invited me back in for a CT and an MRI scan, which happened within, I think I'd literally just got home and was updating my wife when they phoned me and said, "Can you come in beginning of next week?" Totally oblivious to what was going on. I possibly thought maybe I'd chipped the bone or something, so at no stage did I have any inkling about what was going to come down the track. The next stage for me then was to have the CT and the MRI scan, and I just went straight after work. Normally, went to speak to the staff who do that, and then somebody will be in touch with the results. The next step to that was when the GP phoned me to update me with the radiographer's report about the findings of the imaging that they'd done. I was on my way home from work, because I was still working during lockdown, and I was driving home, and his exact words were, "Are you in the car?" Because you can probably tell I was on hands-free, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "How long before you're home?" I said, 30 minutes. He said, "I'll phone you in 40. Again, blissfully unaware about what I was about to be told. I just literally got home, and it was a Friday evening, so I quickly got changed from work, waiting for the phone for the GP to phone back, at which point he says, "Right, I've had the results of your imaging back, and I believe you've got bone cancer." It was as blunt and as direct as that, but I suppose there's no other way to sell the message. He said, "At the moment it's only suspicion, but what I need to do is now to refer you to a specialist department." The one thing he did say, and this was the first time I was even aware of the Bone Cancer Research Trust, was he said, "Do not Google anything. Do not start Googling on your phone." He said, I'm going to text you a link now, which subsequently directed me for the first time to the Bone Cancer Research Trust, where he said this is a realistic and a trusted source of information about what we suspect. And I was then referred on to the Robert Jones Agnes Hunt, the Montgomery unit there, which is one of the bone cancer specialist centres, which then confirmed that the next stage for me was to have a bone biopsy. So the bone biopsy, and again, Miss Cribb had already teed me up to, the imaging suggests it. This is just the platinum standard, that it was a chondrosarcoma. So after that, the biopsy results confirmed it. It was then arranging for the only treatment for chondrosarcoma is surgery. So although I didn't really know what it would, even with the best explanations, and it was, you can't really understand what's about to happen, but basically they're just going to cut a large section of my tibia out to get the margins to stop the tumour. I was very fortunate in the fact of, because my wife had nagged me, I hadn't pushed through to the point of, struggling till pain, pain that I couldn't stand up or anything like that, that the bone had not breached. The actual disparity I'd felt in the bone was over the years, because it is a slow growing cancer. What I'd felt was the bone had started to actually bow out to accommodate the tumour. So that was the first. If I'd left it probably much longer, then what would have happened is the bone would have started to fracture, and the cancerous cells could have then spread into my blood and soft tissues, which is not a very good outcome, unfortunately, for a lot of people. I class myself, because of the work I've done in the past, I'm probably quite resilient. I'm used to rolling with the punches. I've worked in jobs where you have to be quite resilient. But even then, it's still one of those sobering moments. There's a lot of questions. How's it going to affect me? What's it going to look like? What's my future going to look like? How's this going to change things? Things that you really can't know until they actually start happening. So again, it's that, again, ties in with personal resilience. Don't try and eat the pie in one go. Just bite little chunks off at a time, and that's helped, and that's helped me prepare for the journey. But going back to, I really did not know. I knew I was going to lose effectively a large part of a bone in my leg, which was going to be replaced by an internal prosthesis, which allowed me to keep my leg. After surgery, the physio is a large part, because they're putting a prosthesis into your leg. So from mine, it attaches at the top of my femur. I had to have a knee joint replacement, because that gives it the best strength and the best outcome. And then the whole of my tibia, apart from a small portion at the bottom where basically the implant secures into, was taken out. So that, if you can imagine, it's a massive surgery. I'd never had, the worst thing I'd ever happened in my life was a couple of sprains and I fractured my wrist when I was younger. So to have major surgery was massively impactful, and to be honest with you, although I class myself reasonably fit and healthy, and everyone said, no, you're fine, I didn't have any underlying health conditions, but it hit me like a train. And I was down for about 7 days after surgery. It's such a, and all the medical practitioners kept on, and I'm going, oh, I'm sorry, and everyone said, you have just had major surgery. And I think it was at that point that it started to dawn on me just exactly how bad surgery was. And then the first time they took the dressings off on my leg, and you see the length of the stitching and the amount of stitches that were in my leg, and that was one of those, oh yeah, this has been quite a big job. My surgery was March 21, so I'm just over, well, just coming up to the 18-month mark, really. It's been challenging. I set myself goals, and I think that helps everybody. So physio, so post-surgery, you can't do a lot for effectively. They mobilise you enough so you can safely go home from hospital, so you can slowly climb stairs on crutches, etc. But I couldn't use my leg in any way, shape or form. And then it starts very slowly from just replicating walking again, you know, the movements, but without loading any weight through your leg, because as you can imagine, there's that many structures and other elements that are being, you know, affected by the surgery. Through to then you can start doing some more impactful physio, and thanks to Danielle, who's my Macmillan physio at the Montgomery unit and Oswestry, I think about 4 months after I set myself a goal to get back on my bike, you know, because I like cycling, and to get enough bend in my knee to be able to cycle. So that was goal number one. Then goal number two was get back to work before I was due to retire from my current job. So before I retired, and I managed to get back after 5 months. So only driving a desk, but I was back at work and back in the workplace. Moving forward from then, I'd already identified a second career because I was retiring quite young from my first, what was effectively my second career, so into a third career. So I now lecture at university in Liverpool. So yeah, life has become a new normal, and I think that's what you've got to do. Is it's never going to be the same again. There's always going to have to be adapt. You've got to get into your head that you are going to have to adapt. And it was a word that it's used quite often for people recovering, but it's really true. You've got to accept that you're going to have a new normality. You're going to have different parameters. There's things you can and can't do. Prior to my diagnosis, my awareness of bone cancer was, I knew it was a form of cancer, nothing more. Never had cause to look at, you know, any material, any literature. Didn't know the Bone Cancer Research Trust existed, but thankfully it does, because the awareness that is there, and the awareness that, you know, the trust's obviously given to the medical community as well, as you know, it really did speed my diagnosis up. I believe it meant I was passed to the specialist care, which meant that I was in a really good position. Again, it's one of those cliches. It's a club you don't want to join, but I joined, and thankfully I joined it at the right time for me, for you know, for my long-term health outcomes. What I would say to people is, it's again a bit of a cliche, but if it doesn't feel right or something is not normal, then you do need to go and you know, and get it checked out. I probably would have done the typical 50-something male and just gone, oh, I'm fine. Thankfully my wife nagged and pushed me and that, you know, put me in touch with the medical community, which then obviously, as I say, the stars aligned for me really, and I'm so grateful that everything did come together, and that those structures are there to help people. So when the GP sent me the link to Bone Cancer Research Trust, at that point it was just for me, it was get more information, you know, to try and understand what it is that is the problem, that what I'm reading was trusted and valid, you know, because to just do it, as the GP said, do not do it, you know, a general internet search on this. So to have that information, and at that point I was just loading the information on really, you know, with a view to, do I need any further support, you know, but just to know that it's there, you know, again is a great, it's a great help. What do I think of the Bone Cancer Research Trust? Thankfully it's there. It's having been at the conference as well, to see how the Bone Cancer Research Trust is bringing everybody together, from survivors of bone cancer, their family, the support that's there, but also bringing in the medical community to encourage the research, you know, to look for a cure, to look for treatments, to alternative treatments. Again, it's kind of, it's like that there's an set of arms around you almost, that should you unfortunately end up in a position where, whether you're a survivor, whether you're undergoing treatment, whether your family needs support, but it just puts all that community, if you like, the people who need to be looking at this problem, and it just seems to pull everybody together.